Hi, you've reached the voicemail of Hannah Brett with Connect Call. Just leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks.
1 for more options.
Anna, I got your number from my son's therapist. Just to give you a little background, my son is 16, currently struggling with anxiety, depression. He's definitely withdrawing from his school and studies, and he's just isolating in this room. He's definitely being bullied. My child is transgender and uses the pronouns he, him. So first and foremost, what I really love to hear about is if you are safe, would love to discuss the program and how you approach housing and group assignments. Love to hear back from you, and thank you. All right, bye.
Hey, this is Hannah Brett with another episode of Connect Call, where I often say I do not have a clinical background, but I do have a PhD for picking up the phone for families in crisis. As cheesy as that tagline is, I think I'm going to go with it. Today, we have a very special guest, not only a good friend, but an amazing colleague in our industry. His name is Jordan Held. He is this amazing therapist out of Los Angeles. He owns and is the co-founder of Relentless Pursuit Therapy and Consulting. Jordan specializes in acute and chronic trauma, LGBTQ affirming care, and the kind of complicated family dynamics that don't typically fit in neatly in the traditional treatment models. And Jordan and I have worked on a few cases in the past, and I really wanted to bring him on the show to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, because I feel like there's so much misinformation out there, and I know Jordan can clear all this up. So what we wanted to talk about a lot today is about trans youth and treatment, but really, I think, begin the show by just educating people from the beginning, kind of what is transgender, right? Or what, because I still think people are mixing one's gender with one's sexuality. So Jordan, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. And
thanks for having me. Let's clear things up. I
let's
know,
clear
right?
things
It's so
up.
interesting. I'm kind of still like, why are we still talking about this? I live such a boring life. I'm like, I don't really, I love my life. But I do think that it's like, oh my God, like, why is this such a thing?
Right.
And then I take a step back and I'm like, okay, it's a thing because, we have these assumptions. We have these assumptions, around who people are, how they act, how they dress. And then when we see someone or maybe hear something that's different, we start to make those assumptions, right?
And with all due respect, I'm all about, listen, I've said for a very long time, anything you see in the media, always, it's do a fact check, always have credible sources to back it up. But there's a lot of misinformation out there. And to support kind of regulating healthcare for trans youth and all that. And so I think it's just important to hear from the professionals and the people that are working with these kids and individuals exactly what it is and what is going on. So,
well, and I appreciate you saying that because I do see, and we'll dive into this later, but I do see there's so much misinformation. There's also a lot of people who are in the treatment industry who are hopping onto this LGBTQ train because they think that it's profitable for their treatment center. And let me tell you, they are doing damage. They are doing a lot of damage to young people that literally just want to figure out how to stay alive. But let's start just from the ground zero, like really quickly. What does it mean to be transgender? Transgender is an umbrella term in 2026. What I mean by that is there are a lot of different identities that can kind of stem off of transgender. Essentially, the breakdown is that your gender identity, so how you feel yourself, see yourself, exist in the world, is different from the sex that you were assigned at birth, right? So I'll use myself as an example. I was assigned female at birth. I lived 30 years of my life in a female body, in a female world. I started at 30 to socially and then subsequently medically transition. I am a transgender man, right? So, but here's the thing. Under that umbrella, non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer, demi-boy, demi-girl, blah, blah, blah. Like, how it matters
I don't
for
even
you,
know
it doesn't matter.
What is demi-boy, demi-girl?
This is, we're going to get into, we'll talk about it. Because I think here's what, well, it's all about learning. And that's why when we do our intake paperwork, all we need to have is a right in line. Gender identity, boom, client puts it in. And that way we don't need to be the keeper of all this information.
Right. No, a big reason of why I wanted to do this episode is, and I stress this on, I think a lot of my episodes is, I'm not a parent, but after working in 20 years with really my passion and plight has been for kids, young adults, and adolescents. I'm an advocate for all children. And when I say all children, I mean all children. And I recently, one of the projects I was working with was a great treatment center out of Orange County called Arrow House, under the umbrella of Visions Treatment in Malibu and Los Angeles. And I found that, well, two things I found. One is I found that we were seeing a ton of kids who identified as transgender. I also saw with those children, they all just didn't want to be alive anymore. And I get it. We're not inviting them to be here. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
We
it's
don't want them to be here.
right.
When we see somebody in our society now who is other, who is going through a different
Right.
experience, we
Right.
turn against them instead of turning towards them.
Right.
And, when you break it down like that, and, by the way, very little people get that,
Right.
Hannah. Like what
What?
you just said, this idea that trans kids are presenting to treatment not because they're trans, but because society has fucked them.
Right.
Like, that's a big deal,
Right.
right? Like these young people, first of all, are growing up in households whose parents are watching and listening to news that is giving statistics and facts that are
Incorrect.
wrong. I mean, let's bust some clear myths right from the get-go.
Yeah, let's
okay?
go.
This
hard.
idea that being transgender is new, right? It's a new concept. Why have we only been seeing this over the last 5 to 10 years, right? Gender diverse people have always existed across cultures and throughout history. And in fact, if you were to do your research into some other countries, trans people are actually, revered, right? Trans people are respected. It is something, and this dates back centuries and
It's
centuries.
amazing.
It is amazing. And there's some great books on trans research too, if folks are
Right.
interested in it, because it is interesting. Why we're seeing more trans youth now is actually very simple. Those trans youth have access now to
Yeah.
things like history, like the internet, things like that, which is
Right.
not making them trans. It's making them understand that trans
What's
people
going on. Yeah.
existed,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
And also, and
yeah.
just on that note too, I've heard this argument from some people who say, and by the way, when we talk about transgender, we're talking about one's gender. Okay, we're not talking about one's sexuality. That's also a big misconception out there. Like, so many people in the treatment industry and people that I know confuse and think that, like, if you're trans, you're gay. One has nothing to do with the other. You can be, but it doesn't have to do with the other. And with that being said, there is this small, angry, miserable group of LGBTQ participants who want to not allow trans people to be a part of the LGBTQ plight, the flag, and everything. And we talk about history. I mean, whether you're at Stonewall or from the beginning of our fight and I'm a gay woman, and I know this, for our civil rights and to fight for just to be treated equally. Transgender people were standing and fighting right with us. You know what I mean? And that is why they shouldn't be excluded from this. And those who think that, again, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because
Well, yeah, check yourself for sure. I mean, and we should probably bust this right from the gate, because this is one of the biggest things that we'll end up talking about throughout
Right.
this episode when we're talking about trans people in 2026. There is especially when we hear the term gender affirmation. Okay. When people hear this term, for some reason, it now gets translated in the brain as a child who is now about to get down on a surgery table and
Right.
have a surgery or
Right.
have something medical. The idea and the aspect of gender affirmation actually needs to be way more simplified, and it's actually just called respect. It's called meeting someone where they're at, and 90% of the time with somebody under 18 years old, there is nothing medical that is even a part of this person's journey. When we're talking about kids, this is a confusing word also. In the gender world, we
Under
typically talk
18.
about it's 18, but in the gender world, we're talking, we have to be a little more specific.
Right.
Pre-puberty, post-puberty,
Right.
right? Because here's the thing about puberty. Before a kid starts puberty, and we see a lot of these kids even in young treatment because, once again, kids are getting younger and younger when it comes
Right.
to their mental health. There's nothing to medicalize, right? What we're seeing with these kids is, and even with puberty, right? We're seeing kids changing their names, maybe trying out a new pronoun, using, wanting to wear different clothes, wanting to kind of
So
just
then
kind of
when
try out gender. Gender is something that we should all be trying out, by the way.
but you're saying this but I've also heard so when are puberty blockers introduced then? Because isn't it supposed to block puberty
Yeah, it would
for
be so
some
the way
children?
that, and this would turn into a medical podcast, right? Which is very interesting. I think, people should know about this stuff. It's a good
Right.
question. Something like puberty blockers would be introduced at the onset of puberty, right?
Right.
So pediatricians use what's called the Tanner stages. The Tanner stages measure where a kid is in puberty, right? So the blocker then would be introduced that would block the assigned hormones from this person. It would buy some time. Blockers are used to buy time,
So
meaning
is that
like
not considered medical care? Like when you're
it
talking about,
is, it's medical care, but
but
it's fully reversible.
okay. That's what
So
you
it's
need. Say that again.
correct. Right. Blockers are fully reversible,
And
meaning the
people
whole
don't know that.
point.
People don't know
No,
that.
and here's what people also don't know. Blockers have been around, puberty blockers have been around for years,
Right.
right? They were used for
I didn't know
kids
that.
who would go, oh yeah, who would start going through endogenous puberty. That means basically it's like puberty that started earlier. They would get blocked because you don't want to have a hairy 6-year-old. That's weird, right?
Oh,
Like no
morning.
one wants a hairy 6-year-old.
No.
So these
Don't mean to
things,
laugh.
these interventions have been used for a long time. It's
Right.
just that it was like, oh, this is something we can use in gender care. But look, this is also a very small sect of the population, small, that would even go on puberty blockers and then subsequently cross
Right.
sex hormones. This would be a kid who came out when they were very, very young,
Right.
who had a strong sense of self when they were
Identity.
2-3 years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, and this is where, and well, a couple things. One, I have a girlfriend of mine from high school, and I've watched her from afar on social media, and she had, at birth, she birthed twin boys, right? But from the gate, out the gate, as soon as this child could walk, one of the boys really identified as a girl and dressed as a girl, and they respected and owned that and let her do that. I think where there's so much getting messed up is what you're just saying now is so important for people to hear, because they think the first thing I hear people say, and by the way, there's nothing more than I hate and dislike than if you're going to come to the table to disagree or to state these lawmakers to make these changes. It's kind of with women's bodies, they're so misinformed, and it's not only so misinformed, but they're making these decisions based on their fears. And what you're
Yes.
telling us is, and this is what I'm hearing from so many people, it's who are we to decide? These kids are so young that we're doing this medical care on, and what all I'm hearing from you is no medical care is really being done before 18. Also, anything that is being done, like a puberty blocker, everybody listen up, that can be reversed. It can be reversed.
Right. And everything on 18 and
And
under
by the
is
way,
with
this is not happening in your household, so why do you give a shit? That's
well,
even
why do you give?
more.
Yeah, I mean, there's the why do you give a shit factor that's coming up, but
Yeah.
the why this is important is because people are, first of all, parents need to consent. Kids are not just getting things, by the
Of
way. You should
course.
see the journey that it takes. Number one, in 2026, to find a gender clinic that will even work with young people, because this political administration has absolutely dismantled youth care
Yeah.
out of propaganda entirely.
Yeah.
Right. And, the kids that, first of all,
And
can
I
we say
just want to
something?
before you go
Yeah.
on, just to before we go on to that. And just to stress, and I vote for who you voted for, I don't care, but I have to stress this. This whole transgender plight with our administration is a bunch of bullshit, because if you really think about it, the transgender community takes up maybe 1 to 2% of Americans right now. And if you, whether it's sports, which takes up, I think in college sports, I read it's like 0.02% of athletes, or in the Olympics, it's 0.01. These are all just this plight of trying to like, ban this and ban that. It's just a deflect from what's really needed to be done in our administration. And I feel horrible that these people and these kids that I have seen in treatment are being used, basically their rights and everything are being taken away, and also being hated on because our administration's choosing to pick on them,
Well, I mean, and none of this stuff, we've regressed. We've
Sorry.
regressed as a country, and
Yep,
and I mean, don't
definitely.
be. I mean, I think that that we
We have.
so much of this is just misunderstood. I just wish people would listen. I wish people would actually ask questions to
Yes.
experts who
Yes.
understand this work, because
Yes.
what they would really realize is that when we're talking about kids, most of the stuff they are doing is irreversible. Even when a young person does start cross-sex hormones, if deemed correct, there isn't a fake this idea of detransitioning. People are not doing that. Those numbers are so incredibly low. These
Right.
regret rates, this idea of regret, it barely exists.
Right.
And what happens when you don't listen to your young person is that they feel unsafe. They feel unheard. So how this translates into the mental health world, and why we're seeing so many young people presenting to care, it's not because they're trans. It's
Right.
because society's telling them that they should not exist. So
Right.
they have depression, anxiety, isolation, school avoidance. Hell, some of these kids are not even going to school.
Right.
They are being bullied. They have had suicide attempts. Once again, it's not because they're trans, it's because they are being told they shouldn't exist. And so
Right.
they are being bullied.
Right.
Right. And that's, by the way, happening at treatment centers. Can we
Yes.
talk about that?
Yes, we're doing great with our questions right now. I was just like reading over what we because we've hit a lot, but
And
we'll
let's
go
go back
back.
to sports.
But that
Definitely
was
a
also
sports.
another thing that Jordan and I wanted to talk about, is working in the treatment industry, the helping industry. I got into this work. I think Jordan did too. We help everybody, right? This mental health, substance use, the self-medicating with substance use, all of it, none of it discriminates. It's for all, right? And so what has been really frustrating from where I'm sitting, and I'll give a perfect example, is, when I was working at Arrow House, if I had a kid who was trans and they needed, let's say, a higher level of care, or something happened where they got into a fight with a kid in treatment and we had to pull them out and put them into another treatment center, immediately I was like, oh, this is going to be hard, because we were one of the only few treatment centers that I was aware of in the country where these kids were allowed to sleep in a dorm, in a hall, the gender they identify and not the gender they were born with. And then when you call these treatment centers, and I'm not going to name names, but like some of the crazy,
Spill the tea.
but people be like, I don't want a woman on campus with her whatever out, or I don't, and it's, or what, and I've worked for treatment centers too, where they're like, well, we don't do that.
We
And
don't
I'd
do
be like,
that.
well, what's that? It's like, we don't do that. But overall, like, what are some of the issues that you're seeing that you think we need to change and look
Yeah,
at things
I mean,
differently?
there's no oversight. There's no oversight, and there's
Like, I
no
think that
accountability.
people are really concerned about, well, parents are going to be really upset if they have a young
It-
man who was born a girl sleeping with the guys. Meanwhile, our
What does that
communities,
mean? What is coming up from that is
yeah,
actually just this assumption. It's the invalidation of identity, meaning this person is actually not a girl.
right,
They are still a boy. And for some reason, this boy is going to be predatory. There is now this assumption of predatory behavior, which which is the same thing that is rooted in sports. And by the way, you only see this about trans females. You never hear this about trans men, because to society, trans men are still women, and women are whatever. We don't care about women, but it's the misogyny. And so
Right.
that's, if we look at it through
Interesting.
that lens, yes, it's very fascinating when you kind of dive into the socialization of what people are perceiving
Right.
and experiencing. And this happened. This is how the bathroom bill stuff started 10 years ago in North Carolina when, people were starting to let's ban trans people from bathrooms. How are you going to do that? That's this assumption that you can spot a trans person. It's
Right.
an assumption that you can tell
Right.
who is trans, who is cisgender. And by the way, most of the time you actually can't.
You
And when it
can't.
comes to, you can't.
You
Right.
can't.
And I know this because when I go across the country and I
Right.
do train programs who actually do want to learn and get better at this,
Right.
I disclose my gender identity. They're like, wow, wouldn't have known. And I'm like, exactly.
Right.
Right. Because you
Right.
can't just like look at a trans person and spot them. That's
Right.
super discriminatory. And when it comes to the rooming, okay, so a kid is coming in because they've been bullied, harassed, and then they're going to go into your treatment center and you're going to bully and harass them.
Right.
Or you're going to have a a trans person room with their assigned sex when they don't even identify that way.
Which is
And
so
it's weird when
counterintuitive when we're
it
talking
doesn't
about
make
kids.
sense.
Like when we have these children
What do you
come to
think they're going to
treatment.
have sex? Well, women have sex with
Right.
women and men have
Right.
sex with men all the time. So
Right.
what are you talking about?
And just to stress too, for all the parents out there that are in fear, or treatment center owners that are scared of upsetting these parents, I have to tell you, time and time again, when you actually hang out with these adolescents and young adults, they could give a rat's ass. They don't care. It's like they're like, it's how they've been growing up. They've grown up with just so much more, like, it's just a different generation, which is amazing. They're open. They're like not as prejudiced with this kind of stuff than our other older generations. But I feel that, like, even, treatment centers I've worked with in the past where they still confuse transgender with being gay, or like, and I'm like, one does not have to do with the other.
Well, and this is an opportunity for you as a treatment center actually to stand out, right? And to not
Right.
go with what everyone else is doing, right? To not be a
Right.
bigot, right? I mean, it's
And
usually,
that's what
it
it
does. It
is. And
stems,
that's what it is.
it
And
is.
that's
We
what
need to call it out. We need
because
to
this
call
is
it out that
this
you are a
right.
discriminatory
Right.
provider. And we
Right.
don't do that in this industry,
Right.
right? And someone,
Let's go,
I've
Jordan.
had,
Let's do
I've
this.
had, I mean, I've had treatment centers where I've done a 1 hour training 10 years ago. They threw something on the website that they are LGBTQ trained, competent. They have not come back to me for a refresher ever, right? And that's very intentional, right? It's a money
Right.
grab, right?
Right.
We can work with this population, but then this population goes to a treatment center,
Right.
they inflict harm, and then we have to undo harm. This is not the
Right.
helping industry,
Right.
right? And
And
I
and no
yeah, go ahead.
comparison. When I think of a couple of the worst things that were said to me early on when I was in a treatment center, and again, I am gay. I'm not transgender, but at the time I remember I was just coming out, and a big part of why I was drinking and drugging and my depression was I didn't want to be gay. And I remember I was at this treatment center and I broke down to this clinical director or somebody that, I was struggling with my sexuality and all that. And she kind of like tapped my knee and she goes, "That's great, but we're going to save that. Don't share that in group. That's not the right place to talk about it." As soon as she said that, I literally just crawled back into my shell. And
Yeah, you're
every
unsafe.
narrative that I've been telling myself, I said, "Oh, that's true. I'm not wanted." I'm glad you said that because when trauma comes up, when all these new modalities come up, we are getting trained, right?
I also love the cop out of like, oh yeah, like we're not prepared to
We're not the
handle it.
right
Handle
place.
what? I mean, because this is, and when I train clinicians so often, one of the first thing I say is don't automatically put down gender dysphoria if you know that a client identifies as trans. You have no idea if that is a diagnostic criteria for them. They might be fine. I might be presenting to treatment for trauma because I got into a car accident, because a
Right.
tornado just hit my house, right?
Right.
We are filled with these assumptions as a society about what is wrong with somebody instead of how
Right.
we can help somebody. And
Right.
this is getting even harder right now. I'll tell you where the pool is getting smaller and smaller, all these higher levels of care. When I'm talking about residential treatment is hard enough right now. Yeah, like you said, probably 2 to 3 treatment centers I would ever refer to.
Mm.
When you go beyond that, hospitalization, long-term care, because of licensure, so many of these programs are in states that are actively targeting trans folks and trans youth in particular. And so it's very hard to find long-term stable care for some of these young people, especially who are actively and acutely suicidal.
Right.
It's hard, and this becomes a balance because it's like, do I put my child in a container where I know that they will be physically safe, but do I risk their emotional safety?
That's a good point. But like,
Well, and I wish people actually like were open to learning and
watching.
understanding
Yeah.
an experience that you inherently do not know
Thank
because it's not
you.
your experience, and that
Right.
you don't need to know and actually don't know because that's not your life. Here's the thing, Hannah. I actually never care if people ask me questions. As long as they are rooted in at least 5% of good intent, my bar is really
No.
low. My
Yes.
bar is real low. But I want people to be like, hey, tell me your
Let's
story.
have these
What was that like?
conversations.
Let's have this conversation. Kids and young adults are
Right.
walking through the world totally separate from their identity, right? Most of the kids, there are kind of two groups of trans kids that I see in the world right now. There's a group that is out and proud. They'll be at Pride. They'll be with the rainbow flag. They, are proud to be who they are. But then the bigger majority, and this is newer within the last 5 years, and these are the kids that are presenting actually to your treatment centers. They're what they call like stealth, right? They're undisclosed. You cannot tell the
Called what?
difference. Stealth. They're
Okay.
stealth. They fly under the radar. They don't
Right.
identify as trans. So they wouldn't say, I'm a trans man. They're just a man or a boy. Right?
Right.
They do not attach the T to anything.
Yeah.
And guess what? You can, unless you literally did a genital
Right.
genital search at the door, which by the way, creepy if you're doing that as a treatment center, you
Right.
would not know.
Right.
Right?
But
You would not know.
how tragic, right? Like part of who I am today and my growth and healing is my honesty and my truth and my story. And so to tell these kids and they don't have to disclose to everybody, but to
No,
like,
but we are actively taking away people's ability to have a story.
thank you.
Because if I have a story, I
Right.
am bad. And
Right.
this is where the core beliefs tap in,
Right.
right? I am bad. I am not worthy. I do not deserve. I
Right.
should not live. I am better off dead. And these kids believe that. And you know why they believe it? Because they're being told it.
Yeah. And I just want to go back to what you were saying about having conversations. And I'm a big believer of this. I really feel sorry for people out there. Listen, I have opinions on gun reform and a lot of things, but let me tell you something. I have some of the best conversations with people that don't agree with me. And I love to be educated on their standpoint and listen and hear and be informed on stuff I don't understand. What kills so many people who feel this way are just like, nope, that's it. That's how I feel. That's what I saw.
That's how I feel. And you know what would be great?
And
Hannah, honestly, is if someone was like, if people who are listening to this, who work in the treatment industry would be like, wow,
Right.
I think that those are our policies. I don't think that we actually have been trained in this. I don't think that we have
Right.
competency in this.
Right.
Wow, I really want to shift that.
Right.
We don't need to be experts because, by the way, you don't need to be an expert on trans care.
Right.
You're an expert on mental health. You know how you become an expert in mental
Right.
health? You work with people,
But
right?
can I say
You don't-
something that's really
Yeah, of
shitty, but
course.
it's the truth and I know
I'm
it
go
is?
with it. Yeah.
Like in the treatment industry, like people were like, oh, we don't do this. But if Jennifer Lopez called with her child or Angelina Jolie
Yep.
called with her child needing
Yeah, we
treatment,
treat this child.
they would take that kid so fast saying, oh yeah, we're good. I say it all the time. And it's again, no comparison, but my biggest gripe also around the holidays is when I go to all these treatment centers and all I see is a Christmas tree. And I'll say to these treatment centers, oh, so you don't take any Jewish people, right? And they're like, what? And I'm like, see, you can't welcome everybody and not welcome everybody. And a lot of these places still believe Jesus is the reason for the season. And I'm down with that. Like, I love Christmas. I love Jesus and all that. But if you are seeing Jewish clients and you don't have a menorah up, know the.
Well,
the
it's a
Jewish,
sign. It's a sign. It's a
yeah.
safety.
Yeah.
I feel seen here. I'm
Yeah.
seen.
Yes. It just feels, or, for those clients where they're gay, transgender, you name it, and we're not even acknowledging that it's Pride Month. You know what I mean? It's just like, but we're like LGBTQ. We have an LGBTQ tracker. Which cracks me up. We're
Ugh.
LGBTQ friendly, which cracks
I
me
don't.
up.
What does that mean?
What does that
Can we say that
mean?
we're unfriendly? Like we're.
What does
I'm gonna make that
LGBTQ
sign.
friendly
I'm
mean?
gonna make We're gonna make bumper stickers. LGBTQ unfriendly facility. That's what actually the reality is.
Really?
We should actually. That's brilliant. Um,
Thank
but I
you.
think that yeah, that was really good. But I do I do believe that, and we joke about this because we've seen the harm, right?
Yes.
So I have
Yes.
seen young people go through every level of care in outpatients, PHP, IOP, RTC, long term care, therapeutic boarding school, and they are getting
Right.
harmed over and over again in this revolving wheel. When guess what could have happened the first time? I mean, I remember when I was back working at Visions, it was so interesting. We had this milieu one time of kids that was so incredibly diverse. You know, there were from the South, from parts of California that were super conservative, from like rural parts of places. And then we also had a milieu with a few trans folks. What happened in that milieu from the
Yeah.
day those kids were together to when some of them discharged was the
Right.
healing. That was the
Yes.
work. And that
Yes.
what was beautiful. That's what we don't see. It's people, it's like AA. It's like people who are from all of these different
Right.
backgrounds. They have one thing that's in common. It's
Right.
that they are alcoholics and addicts. And that's what it
Right.
was. But when we take that opportunity away and we take the learning away, and in parent groups, when a parent says something like, I don't really feel comfortable with those two people rooming together, instead of saying, okay, we'll change it, we say, let me tell you why we do this here.
And how do you answer that question? Go.
I say at this treatment
Because that's
center,
so many parents supposedly feel like that.
yeah, in
Supposedly.
the state of California, it's actually the law. People don't always follow it, but it's the law to room people based on gender identity, not the sex that they are assigned at birth. So we actually follow California law,
Which is amazing.
right? Which is amazing, weird, shocking, I know. But I think that, and we could go deeper, right, into the why. And there's also a lot
But
of other
when you have parents who have
factors.
this fear
Yeah.
and you're on the phone with them, right? And
hmm
they're like, I don't feel comfortable, da 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 da. How do you answer that?
Yeah, if someone's saying I don't feel comfortable, I want to understand why. So the first thing that I'm
Right.
going to do is I have to tell me why. Well, like I'm scared for my kid, and they're not going to feel comfortable about this. And then, what it is you work with them very slowly, and sometimes it's a gradual process.
They're
Meaning,
fair enough. Yeah.
it's their fear, and there are ways to mitigate this. We don't just want to come in hot and be like, this is what we do. But
Right.
let's say there's an empty room, we wouldn't be putting the trans kid in the empty room. This is what treatment centers do all the time. They isolate the trans kid. Instead, it's like, if your kid doesn't feel comfortable, well, then they can stay here
Thank you.
until they get comfortable, and then they can integrate with the milieu. What I see wrong every time is that people isolate the person who has presented with the most isolation.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
so maddening.
Right. So much like we actually do when it comes to the gender process, when it comes to social intervention and potentially medical intervention, it's a journey. It's quite literally a process, meaning like nothing happens overnight. It's so funny when people are like, oh my God, like Johnny's going to get a surgery. It's like, what are you even talking about? Like that
Right.
doesn't happen. That doesn't exist. Misinformation, miseducation. These
Right.
are the parents too, where we as marketers, admissions, case managers, everyone needs to understand the facts here
Right.
and where someone is on transition, right? So most of the time too, and this is where it gets more nuanced
And just
into
like
has
any other
somebody
kid that comes into treatment, and thank you for saying this, and I stress
yeah.
this all the time, every kid that is being assessed for a treatment center is different and their needs
Correct.
are different.
So
And
let's
it's
say a
not across
kid
the board. Yeah.
No, but Hannah, thank you for saying that because when it comes to this, there are nuances. If
Right.
somebody who is assigned female at birth came out 2 weeks ago, was like, I'm now going by Steve and I'm using, they, them pronouns and I want to be with the guys. We're going to assess that further because that person literally just came out. They might
Right.
actually not feel comfortable. We also shouldn't assume that they want to room with the sex that
Right.
with their gender identity. That
Right.
person might still want to room with the females, for
Correct.
example. We
Correct.
don't know. They haven't even started their journey yet. So just because they identify now as trans masculine doesn't mean they necessarily want to room with the boys, right?
Right.
What we need to
Right.
understand are the different experiences. Somebody who has, for a trans girl, who has, socially transitioned and then been on blockers and then been on cross-sex hormones since puberty, they're they're phenotypically a girl. They've already grown, they've gone through female puberty essentially, right? Like so you're not gonna room with the boys. That would be really weird. By the way,
Mm,
that would also be outing them,
right.
right? And that's not what we want to do either. But it is the misinformation. It's like, I love the statistic going, we didn't talk about sports, and that's fine because I think it's almost like a ridiculous topic, but
It's
it
the
is
most
helpful to,
ridiculous
it's
topic,
so
and I need to
ridiculous.
say this because I said it to a friend of mine the other night. Because, like, I've heard from some of my friends that are athletes, they're like, "It's not fair, it's not fair." I go, "You know what's not fair? What's not fair is, like, I was watching the playoffs, and I was saying this to you the other day, like, when you're a Knicks fan and you're going up against a guy on the Spurs team
Webby. Yeah.
who's
That's the guy.
7'4", who can touch
Yeah.
the net. That's not fair. So
Well,
how can you, like, in competition, that's how it works. So it's like to then just like say, well, you know, uh, you know, trans males can't compete with it. Just like it,
well, it's never trans males. It's always trans
it's
females
females.
because
Correct. Correct.
trans females to people are still men. Therefore, they're like
Right.
advantage. But exactly. Yes. Okay. I'm playing against Wemby. Michael Phelps. Why did he win so much? Well, actually do research into his physiology, his
Right.
wingspan, his VO2 max. It's
Right.
much
That's not
higher.
fair.
That's not fair either, right?
Right.
Simone Biles, not fair. Pastor
Right.
Semenya, not fair. And
And these players, there's only like 10 of them, right? We did the numbers. It was
Hannah,
like,
there are at this point, it's probably less because
right.
the NCAA is actually cracking down on things. They're out of 510,000
Yeah.
NCAA athletes,
Yeah.
there are 10, maybe under 10 trans athletes. And you know why
So
you're not
crazy.
hearing about them? Because they're not winning anyway.
Yeah. Like what?
They're not a threat.
So when
It's,
people
it's
get so upset or like even bring that up as an argument, I'm like, are you serious? Like,
well, no, it's actually sad if we I think we joke and cope through laughter and it's our trauma, Hannah. But I
yes.
think what's
Yes.
actually like really sad is that my clients who I see who are in the teenage years and identify as trans,
Mm,
they wouldn't step foot near a field or a
yeah.
court because they are so scared of
Yep.
being bullied. So
Yep.
if you recall back to your childhood, where did you learn so much about life? Through play.
Right.
You learned through play. You
Right.
learned through being with other people on the playground, playing basketball,
Right.
playing soccer. These kids don't have that, not because they're trans, but because they've been ostracized and they've been
Right.
othered. So this kind of fallacy, and by the way, have you ever seen youth soccer, for example, is perfect. It's co-ed.
Right.
It's co-ed, right? In a lot of the time, because there's no biological, physiological advantage when you haven't even gone through puberty.
Right.
And, we're really the same people that are in the treatment industry to quote unquote help are the ones who are actually harming. And
Right.
this is one of the places, it's not only about this care, but this I would say is in the top 3 ways where this industry should actually be ashamed of itself. If you do not stand up for marginalized populations who are getting marginalized outside of your walls, you should be shut down.
Yeah. I so agree with that. It's so crazy to me. Like, and I have this argument. Jordan's a good friend of mine, and I'll say it. Like, what you will know about me and get to know more is I'm very outspoken, and I'm kind, and I am funny. But what I do not like is when people stand on this pedestal of, look at me, I got a 30-year chip in sobriety, and look at us with all of our amazing CARF and JACO accreditation, and we're like the best treatment center, and da 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 da. But then are just so discriminatory about, anything that is not white, that is not safe, that is not, what they know. And that's not treatment. That's not how it should go. It's kind of like it's a lot of things. I mean, we can get really into it. It was kind of like when Black Lives Matter, and then everybody starts to put like the black kid in the brochure, and it was just, you know what I mean? It just, to me, I don't know. I wasn't raised that way. My mother raised me to, you fight and you advocate and you love all children, no matter where they come from, no matter where they were born, no matter what their faith is, no matter the skin color, no matter anything, sexuality, gender, anything. And an episode I really want to do is kind of discuss about the difference between adolescent treatment that is good and then this whole troubled teen behavioral modification group of facilities that, in my opinion, should be shut down under the guise of Christ. A lot of them are like Christ-centered, not all of them. I'm not against faith-based treatment, but I am against anybody using the word troubled teen and also behavioral modification. Time and time again, when I look at these programs and I see these kids who are going in and parents are concerned about their sexuality, or they're, my son thought he was Alexis, but we brought him back. And after doing treatment there, he's now back and being Nick. Like, to me, that is not only abuse, it is so much harm. It is neglect. But but I wanted to ask you, when just briefly tell me, when you're working with a treatment center and you start training with them, like, give me an overview, a little bit of what that looks like. What are you showing them?
Yeah, I mean, we have to start from the first phone call. It's
Right.
all from the first phone call, because if I'm, undercover boss, I can really start the
that
first time.
show.
Oh my God, I know. That should be you, actually.
Yeah, we talked about it. If
Yeah,
I had a
that's
big
right. That's
budget
right.
and makeup, I would love to do undercover
Yes.
treatment and just go in and
Yeah.
just bust these programs.
So it starts really with admissions. Well,
Right.
it starts with your website. It starts
Right.
with your website, really understanding like who you are, what you stand by, what your discriminatory philosophies are,
Right.
how and then it really is that first phone call in terms of like, me as a parent, if I'm a parent of a trans kid, I want to really understand, talk to me about your milieu, talk about how you room kids, talk about the training that your staff and your therapists have. Do you respect my child's pronouns? Do you respect,
Right.
this journey?
Right.
Do you have, specialists that work with this, or do you contract out, with clinicians who can really help? Really going in. And then we have to be training everyone from the chef to
1,000%.
actually more so, more so than even, the clinicians, because,
Yeah.
well, I can't even say the clinicians are licensed because at so many of these programs now, the
No,
quote
but
unquote
when I used
therapists
to
are
work at
not
some of these
licensed.
programs and I'd have to bring in people to tour and those questions we brought up, I'd be like cringing because like nobody knew how to answer it and they'd answer
Yeah.
it so horribly,
Horribly.
And-
Oh, we support, and it's, when people stumble around it, we support all people. We support all people, no
Right.
matter their identity. We're going to do it. We throw around this word individualized in the treatment world all the time.
Yes.
But we actually should be individually assessing all of our young people.
Yes, we should.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
We don't, but we should. And then we're going to then go into trainings. Let's talk about why this is important. Let's talk about the myths, all these myths. And we probably covered like 5% of them. Right. Let's talk about how this then presents in treatment.
Right.
And here's the biggest thing. Let's talk about your biases.
Right.
Right. Let's talk about why this feels uncomfortable for you. It's my most, it's like my favorite thing to really tap into with
The
folks,
parent who's calling, or
with the parent, with the staff.
yeah.
Right. What is making you feel uncomfortable about
I
this
love
conversation?
Yeah.
Right. What is making you feel uncomfortable about these, to that CEO out there? What is making you feel uncomfortable to which you're saying we don't do that?
Yeah. If you have decided we are going to be doing treatment and we own a facility and we are going to help people, then stay informed and stay on top of this, because it's a cop out when you say we don't do this or we're not the right place. Well, no, you're not the right place because you don't
You're
want to
not-
learn.
Yeah,
But
you're
it's
not the right
just
place.
like, it's such a bad, to me, it's very telling and it's a horrible thing. And if nobody else listens to this episode, I really do hope a lot of people in our industry do hear it. And I also wish one day that we would have a licensure board that really does the policing and really gets people trained in everything
Ethics.
they need to be trained in, you know?
And all trans youth are looking for, much like actually all youth are
Right.
looking for the same thing across
Right.
the board, no matter gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, safety, connection, support, and the
Thank
opportunity
you.
to thrive. That's
Thank
it.
you.
The opportunity to thrive, the opportunity to belong.
Thank you.
Because most kids are going through that same thing right now. It's
Right.
a very isolating society that we live in, and we can either meet those young people where they are and help them, or we can just continue the cycle and cause more.
And I'm going to have an episode coming up soon with our friends Curtis and Jennifer Sawyer from Driftwood about admissions and the questions that parents need to be asking admissions about a program, because it's a major investment and a lot of parents don't know how to ask the major questions. And we're going to cover this. Before we let you go, and I'm going to have you back on because you're amazing, I always say to I'm going to start saying this now to my guests, because we're called Connect Call, right? And we have this opportunity to be on the phone with the family. If you were on the phone with a parent right now or somebody, a loved one, what would your parting words be? What would you like to leave somebody with before they get off the phone with you when it comes to transgender youth and treatment or needing treatment? Like, what would be some parting words for them?
My parting words would just be, we
And
are
you can
here
do
to
that also
support.
for a treatment center as well. Go on.
Yeah. I mean, for the parent, it would be like, I understand that this is a really scary, endeavor that you're going through, navigating this journey with your child. Like, you're in the right place. You're doing all the right things. You are doing the best you can. You don't need to know everything, but this is why, you have us. Thank you for trusting us. And same thing with the treatment center. It's like, it's, hey, you know, we're not going to get everything 100% right all the time, but guess what? We're going to do the best we can.
Thank you.
We are going to create a safe environment and space and culture. We have a culture of safety. We don't say
Right.
this is a safe space. That's something that's up to somebody to determine themselves. We have a culture of safety,
Love
and we will
that.
make sure that you're taken care of.
Right.
Right. And we
Right.
are going to try and we can't erase some of the negative things that this young person has dealt with out, but we can make sure that they can have a different experience with us now.
Amazing. All right, Jordan, I've loved having you on the show. Everyone, please subscribe, and then you'll get to see all the show notes and see about Jordan's info and can get in touch with him. But it has been a pleasure. You are a force to be reckoned with, and we are very grateful to have you. I'm grateful to have you in my life, but also in the treatment industry. We need more people like you. So thank you so much.
Thanks for
being
having
here
me.
today. All right, take care. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Connect Call. As we conclude, remember that insights shared are intended for informational and educational purposes only and should not substitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. We strongly recommend consulting a qualified medical health professional or healthcare provider for personalized advice tailored to your unique needs. Your mental health journey is important, and having the right support is essential. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis or require immediate assistance, please reach out to a mental health provider or emergency services in your area. We're grateful to have you as part of our community, and your well-being remains our priority. So follow us on social media to stay connected, and be sure to catch one of our episodes on our YouTube channel. We're here to support you every step of the way.